when I think about heart work and the way that I originally started processing this came about through my profession. I've been an educator for some time, and it goes all the way back to my junior year. So what many people don't know about me, if you haven't known me before I entered the education space, I was in the world of agricultural production. So I have a bachelor's degree in animal and poultry sciences, and those who knew me then just knew for sure when they heard Dr. Jubilee, I was a veterinarian. And I did do some work in that space, but in my junior year of college, where I was really in a space of trying to understand what my purpose was. Why had God created me? What am I here to do? What was revealed to me was that, yes, the science of animals is something you know, and it's something you love, and it's something you can do, but it's not the space where the transformation of why you've been placed on earth is going to actually take residence. And so it was in this realm of the Black community. I was raised in a very Black pride, home of Black pride, and my parents were always about making sure that I understood that, yes, there is a story of trauma that comes along with our Blackness, but that is not the totality of our existence. And there is so much more victory, and that can happen through you because of where you come from. Education is a portal. And so I sort of moved my professional world, even though I did finish my academic credentials and worked for the USDA for some time and did all of those things. I really sought purpose in education and using that as a vehicle to support the Black community and elevating ourselves out of all of the conditions of oppression. And what I realized that was for all of the forerunners, all of our ancestors, the people who came before us, those that are notable and those whose names will never be known, the reason why they were able to sit in those seats and take all of that was because there was a heart transformation that they knew needed to happen. And so when I think about the world of equity and all of the things, we're in a world now where those things are under attack. For me, the heart work really came in to understand that before I can do anything to change a condition for another person, I have to understand that we are connected at the soul level, and that the real ability to dismantle oppression, for one, starts with the matter of the soul. You got to know that we are one. And if I have hatred toward you, there's no way that I can see liberation for myself.
Yes.
And so that was the start of that for me. And so it gets down to, who has God created us to be as beings? That starts with the matter of the heart. We can't love the Lord thy God without our heart, soul, and mind, and then despise our neighbor. It just doesn't exist.
Right.
And so when I think about heart work, that's where it originates.
There's so much. Literally, we could have a book, a whole podcast just off of the answer to the first question. But you touched on something that I feel like the Lord put in my heart to pull apart earlier in this week. And I'd love for you to actually, from your lens of what you just shared, there's a difference from doing things because you're gifted and you have a talent for it, compared to actually tapping into purpose. And I've watched people, one, wrestle with that word, be afraid of that word, feel like that word is too elusive. But I've also watched people get confused and stuck because they're good at something and they just keep doing it when there's something bigger. Could you, from your lens, help that person who is actually feeling stuck? They're like, I'm good at this, but I'm not sure. How do you pull apart the difference between your talent and your purpose?
Oh, that's a big question. That's a big question.
You let me there.
Yeah, but it's a big question. Okay, so I'm going to answer it in two parts.
Yeah.
I'll start with when I came into that understanding for myself. So I just shared the journey. I was in my junior year of college. I went to Virginia Tech, and we had the Virginia Maryland Regional Veterinary Hospital or School on our campus. And one of the veterinarians came to our junior seminar, and he said, if you want to go to veterinary school because you love animals, don't apply. He said, you have to love the science of animals. And so by that point, I understood that I was gifted in the science. I have a scientific brain. I still think that way today, and it has served me well. But I wasn't passionate about the science in that way. The way that God used that was that he used science to help me understand, so as it is in heaven, it is in earth. And then in the earth realm, there are things that you need to do with your spiritual experience to change the human condition.
Yeah.
I was afraid of that because obviously I'm a first generation graduate from college. I went to Virginia Tech pretty much on full scholarship, bless the Lord.
Mhm.
So to turn around and tell my family, okay, y'all, I'm going to take a different approach. My father in particular was not too fond of that.
Mhm.
But I knew that there was something greater. And, he trusted his daughter enough to know that I wouldn't make frivolous decisions, which is why I finished the bachelor's degree in
Mhm.
animal and poultry science. And side note, I might need to go into that poultry science with these eggs.
Hey,
So,
hey, a whole
okay,
truth.
the whole price of eggs, I'm getting ready to get me a chicken coop in the backyard. But that's a whole nother thing.
That's a whole nother thing,
But
but
there's a
it's
there's
true.
a piece about that. So I was a Ronald E. McNair scholar,
Mhm.
and I used that program on our campus as sort of my way to see if this was where the Lord wanted me to go. And before I
Mhm.
submitted my application, I prayed to God and I said, if I am not to transition, like literally my
Mhm.
entire life's work into
Mhm.
what I think you're calling me to, do not let me get into the program. Submitted my application. The weeks went on. I got my application, my letter back, and I was walking through, and I literally remember this was one of the very few times where I heard an audible voice of
Mhm.
God.
Mhm.
I was walking through the parking lot. I opened the letter. Congratulations, you've been entered into the Ronald E. McNair Scholars. And I was like, Lord, am I really supposed to do this? He said, didn't you ask me to say, if you weren't supposed
Mhm.
to do this, not to let you get in?
Mhm.
And it wasn't one of those, it was like, that's not in my train of thought.
Mhm.
You are confirming this for me. So on the one hand, I think there are moments where if you are, if there's a tug in your spirit, lean into and just follow the pathway. Trust God with the big questions because he will be sure to answer them, and then move from that space.
Mhm.
The second way I would answer that is that I have one of my preacher friends, she always says that when you have a righteous burden about something, that thing that
Mhm.
just won't leave you alone, that no matter where you go, what you engage in, you find yourself drawn to it,
Mhm.
that's also an indication that's your
Mm.
call.
Yes, it won't leave you alone. And I feel in my soul, you just spoke to somebody and they're like, okay.
Mhm.
They just said, okay. In everything that you have shared already, there is a consistent element of developing self awareness
Mhm.
and the ability to strengthen that and being able to have that self awareness guide you. And I would even lean in to also go back to something you said at the top, not only the self awareness piece, but understanding your self worth so that I also can then give you the margin, someone else, to actually operate in their worth as well.